Thank you, Magnus, and thank you, Stefan. I'm a little bit cross. I didn't get that neck rub up there. Could have used that. Anyway, as everybody else, I was asked to bring a picture of what quality of life is for me. So I brought this, and for me, it's very much about being in nature. And I think for most people, quality of life is about the little things, the little details that makes us happy on a daily basis. And we already heard about the rules framework that we learned about today of how to get that little extra thing. So thank you for that. Yeah, we all have to go home and think about our purple goldfishes after this. However, I am here today not to talk about the little things, but talk about the big things. So we all know that our society is facing many challenges. There's mountains of food waste, and yet there's starvation. There's criminality, and there's pollution. And as professionals in the service design community, we actually have the tools, we have the mindset to look at these problems, maybe not as problems, but rather as opportunities. And just as Kiki said, she sort of laid out the challenge for us to pick it up. We also have the facilitating skills to bring all the different people together, the stakeholders that are needed to tackle some of these bigger issues. But I'm here today to share with you 3 stories about 3 individuals who has formed the basis and the inspiration for the creation of new markets and business models. And I will come back to those stories and some of these numbers a little bit later on. So, first of all, I'd like you to meet Kim. Kim comes from a family of fishermen in the Philippines. And she and her family has been fishing all her life on the Danajon Bank, one of the world's most degraded reefs. And she really worries that in the future there will not be enough fish on the reef due to human waste and abandoned fish nets. And this is Joshua. And Josh is just about to leave prison. And he's doing that for the 3rd time. And he's been spending his last time in the Dixon Correctional Institute in Jackson, Louisiana. And he's really looking forward to meet his son, who's now 4 years old. But he worries quite a lot that he's not going to make it. It's not that easy to come out and not fall back into the old patterns of his old life. And there isn't really very much support structures for him out there when he comes out. And the 3rd individual here is Shu. And I met him myself 2 weeks ago in the outskirts of Shanghai. This is in his home. And in his city, Shanghai, which is one of the world's mega cities, 24 million people living in one city. Pollution is a constant worry. And Shu and his wife has actually started to grow their own vegetables on a deserted plot nearby, just because they worry of having access to safe food for him and his family. So I really have to press hard on this. So if we're zooming out a bit, the simple way to view traditional business has been about generating as much money as possible without necessarily taking so much responsibility for what's happening in society or in the environment. It's about using the resources for your own benefit with no or very little giving back to the communities where you're engaging. Now that goes for quite a lot of companies, obviously not for Airbnb, as we all learned today. They're all about giving back. And we could surely do much more of that, giving back to communities, all of us. However, this very short-sighted view of value creation has also generated a lot of critique. So today, many consumers don't trust in the big corporations to have the consumer's best in mind. But there's alternative models where businesses actually can be more successful the other way around, creating value for all the players in the value chain. Now, these ideas are not new. They've been around and discussed and debated in business media for quite some time. But it's about putting the societal challenge at the center and creating new models that benefits all the players in the chain. It's a new form of shared value that creates a stronger totality and that can generate a competitive advantage as such. So how does it work in practice? So coming back to Kim, and let's talk a little bit about these fishing nets. So when left in the ocean, fishing nets can drift around for a long time and cause immense damage. And one of these nets left around can last some 600 years plus. And they're actually made of a very high performance engineering plastic. It's a nylon material that's excellent for recycling. So what happened was that in 2011, Miriam Turner, a very clever manager at a company called Interface Carpets, they manufacture carpet tiles from nylon material. She had this beautiful idea. So she said, what if we can create an entirely new business model where we collect the discarded fishing nets from the fishermen, we give them an extra income, and we can help clean up the world's beaches and oceans at the same time. So I will share with you now a 2-minute video that tells their story.
I always believe that you can do business at the same time contributing for very serious objectives like cleaning the oceans of marine debris. So it's not a charity. This is an enterprise, a social enterprise.
Networks is a programme that takes discarded fishing nets from coastal communities and arranges the recycling of those fishing nets back into carpet fibre that we can use in our modular flooring.
What we're doing with Networks is creating a new and innovative and practical example of an inclusive business model. Groups from the communities go out into the environment, collect nets off the beaches or from the sea, and they get nets from fishers at the end of life, so preventing them from getting into the environment in the first place. As a group, the community then sell the nets into a global supply chain, and they're regenerated into nylon yarn that can then be used to make some very beautiful products, such as Interface's carpet tiles.
Developing inclusive business is not about philanthropic giving. We're doing this to demonstrate that there is a better way of doing business.
Pagtukod ani nga panasa ng 1 year na, so na minus-minus ang mga basura kay ang mga membro mo participate man sa mo-cooperate man sa pagpanguha sa pukot ng mga basura.
Through these network projects, some values and attitude actually change. Attitude change is quite difficult to convince because it comes from inside the person. But if once shown you're doing that change, it's really a miracle happening. Saving is not something that they're used to do. It is something that they not even know it's possible. The ability to save money kind of help them to plan for the future, especially as I observe they're more looking into the education of their children.
So success for me for the Networks programme, having now established that the initial programme is viable, is to expand that beyond, to also influence the broader manufacturing community to explore inclusive business opportunities in their supply chain.
Yeah, amazing, right? Now these kind of stories are what inspires me to go to work every morning, that people actually make this happen. So what happened in this case was that up until today, 38,000 tons of fishing net has been collected, changing the lives of 4,500 people in the Philippines and giving them a better life. And this project has become such a success, so it's now being grown to Cameroon and to 2 other regions in the next coming period of time. So I wanted us to take a look at the winners. I mean, normally you talk about win-win solutions, right? So here we have a full circle of winners. So obviously the fisherman is winning because they get the new income. The fishermen's children, they get to go to school and have the prospect of a better life. The community benefits from new job opportunities, a banking service, and a growing economy. The suppliers and the manufacturers get access to a steady stream of qualitative recycled material. The consumer gets quality products, right? And the gains for society is priceless, obviously, having clean oceans. And closing the circle again, if the fishes get a cleaner habitat, there will be more fishing possible for the fishermen in the future. So, what happened to Joshua? Well, what happened was that the state of Louisiana saw that the re-entry process was failing over and over again, and they wanted to do something about it. They saw how this tore people's lives apart. So they connected with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, the global educational publisher, to develop a re-entry program for prisoners who were about to come back into society. And according to the publisher, some 9 million people every year in the US are released from prison. That's a huge number. But just the outlook of helping a share of those people into a better life, obviously is a huge benefit and can save a lot of money from the money spent on criminal relapses. So what they did was develop this educational service that included, for example, teaching the prisoners how to apply for a new job, how to manage their social relationships, things that's not maybe so easy when you're coming out to a new situation. And it also included an educational training package for the prison staff to be able to supply this service to the prisoners. So let's look at the winning circle. So obviously the prisoners get a better outlook to a new, brand new start in life. The relatives get a support structure. The prison staff get a professional tool to be able to execute their jobs. The community becomes safer. And the publisher in this case, they discovered an entirely new market for them and for their products. So what happened was that they could package this up and also sell it to many other states. And at the same time, they gained a very favorable position with their key client, that was the government in this case. The government saves a lot of cost, and society obviously benefits from less suffering and happier and more productive citizens. And I'm sure I've missed someone here, like the law enforcement system obviously gets less strain. So let's take a closer look at education, which is something that is going to grow massively in the coming years. But today, there's some 200 million people on the planet that are unemployed. And at the same time, if you look on the other side, 60% of the world's CEOs says that the lack of skilled staff is actually holding back their growth. So there's like a huge gap here between. So what's happening is that companies like Intel, Verizon, and SAP, they've all partnered up with universities to create their own custom-made programs to suit their business needs. So in helping these young people into an employable state, they at the same time get this talent pool that's tailored to their needs. And even if these people don't get employed by these companies, they tend to start and work in organizations around the universities. So these clusters are building up with the knowledge that these companies can tap into. And it becomes a region that can help each other out. And those kind of clusters are really a key to build these kind of shared value principles. So if we're coming back to Shu again and talk for a moment about food. So today we're 7.2 billion people on the planet. And in 2050, we'll be 9.5 billion. So this is a little bit like thinking about the universe and the stars and everything, but it's a lot of people. So how can we get safe food to 9.5 billion people on the planet? But the fact is that we actually could feed the entire population of the planet today with the current production of food. And that would mean no further impact on the planet. But the problem is that today, a scary 40% of all food becomes waste. So typically that happens in the developing countries, that happens before the food reaches the consumers. So there's poor logistics, there's loading, unloading, there's poor storage facilities. We just saw that in China. And on the other part of the world, in the developed world, most of this food is becoming waste after it has reached our kitchens and our restaurants. So I just want to make an example of a beefsteak. So let's just take a 200-gram beefsteak and think about for a moment what goes into the production of that. So for this beefsteak, it takes the same amount of farmland as it does to produce about 27 kilos of potato and roughly 16 bathtubs of water. So let's just say, for the sake of things, that this piece of beef is going bad, so we throw it away. Then we actually throw away a lot more than this piece of meat. We throw away all the animal food, all the water, all the transportation, all the handling cost, and all the packaging, and everything that's attached to this, this beef is also thrown away. So obviously this is a huge misuse of resources. And only in Sweden every year we throw away 250,000 tons or something of food. And naturally, and I think that's what Kigge also wanted to make a point of this, that these are big and complex issues, and they are best solved by an ecosystem of solutions. But I wanted to share with you one example of someone who actually tried to do something about it. And this is a company called Allwin, and they're based in Gothenburg here in Sweden. And they started a few years ago and created this service where they collaborate with the retailers. So they collect the unsold food from retailers, and they distribute it through their food bank to charities that in turn help families in need. So this food comes to good use. And what is this then, unsold food, you may think? Well, it's food that may have short shelf life, but still has very good quality for maybe a few more days. Or it's food where the packaging has been damaged for some reason, so it's visually not sellable, but the product inside may still have a perfect quality. And what happens today is that the retailers actually pay the waste handlers to come and pick this food up. So they might just as well pay Allwin to come and pick it up. So the family needs get healthy food. The charities can spend their money on other things than feeding people. The food retailers, they have to pay market value for their own sold food, and they can pay Allwin just as well. And the company in this case gets the revenue from the retailers. And the waste management actually isn't a loser either, because they get less strain, and in the end they have a less pressure on their system and less landfill. And obviously the society also benefits from an increased support for people in need and a better use of resources. So, and just to mention, the last year, Allwin has delivered 500,000 meals to people in need through their business model. And they're growing it and scaling it up to more regions in Sweden and into a profitable business model. Okay, so summing this up, you know, looking at the next generation of business opportunities, they may actually masquerade as a societal problem. So we just need to look at problems with a different lens. We need to start loving our problems, like Fred said today, which I think was a good framing. And looking again at the value chain is one way of doing it. There may be gaps that we previously didn't see that there could be value in bridging. And also engaging people on a grassroots level and collaborate in new ways. This is obviously a hot topic in the design research community, and I think it will mean that we again, as designers, will have to take a closer look again at our roles as designers and what role we can play. And I think Dennis, I look forward to hear Dennis tomorrow talk about the new ways of setting up our own business models as service designers to be able to play in these areas. And finally, we need to also look at ways to measure progress and value. And thank you, Nathan, for actually doing that speech already. But in this context, it's often about attaching value to something that maybe previously wasn't measured. So if it's something that's critical for your business success, like, for example, the access to skilled staff, that's something you can attach a value to. So, finally, it's about knowing what to look for and the approach that it is possible. And if you don't sort of start looking for the better option, it will not be found. Thank you.